talking to a lot of different people about RefugeeOne. And I don't know about everybody else, but I really hate being put into a position where I don't feel prepared for something. So we want to make sure that everybody's equipped with all of the information about RefugeeOne, what's happening nationally, and what's happening across the globe with refugees and refugee resettlement. So to start out, I know that most of you are already aware of this, but things that people want to know about RefugeeOne. RefugeeOne is the largest refugee resettlement agency in Chicago, and it's actually one of few agencies that are truly comprehensive throughout the nation. We offer services for refugees of all ages, including mental health services, and there are very few agencies in the nation that do that. A couple numbers that often stand out to people that I think are important for each of you to know are up on the projector. First, that as you know, our mission is to help refugees become self-reliant. And so the first point is really important, and that's that 95% of our refugee clients are fully self-reliant within their first year of arrival. And that's really, really remarkable when you consider the fact that most of them came here with little or no English skills, very little educational and work background, and they're able to come here to a completely new environment and become financially self-reliant. Along those,
I'm sorry, Jeff, is this written someplace?
We can send this out.
We'll send the slides after.
And actually, yes, I'm going to be handing a handout that has a lot of this information on it too. The second point kind of goes along with the first, and that's that we partner with more than 150 local businesses that hire and employ our clients. So we've developed relationships throughout Chicagoland with employers and businesses that prioritize refugee employment and working with RefugeeOne in order to do that. One thing that really impresses me is that we partner with more than 1,400 volunteers. And that number has really, really significantly skyrocketed in the past 2 years. And finally, our staff here at RefugeeOne speaks 35 different languages, which is also really impressive. We've got about a 35-person staff. Let's see, here's the clicker. So the next thing we're going to do is talk a little bit about why RefugeeOne still needs support, in spite of the things that we're facing at the federal level. So we're going to do an activity. It'll be somewhat interactive, and I hope everybody feels comfortable just throwing out guesses. But we're going to go through a couple facts about refugees, and we'll have some fill in the blanks and true and false as we go. So today, the global need for refugee resettlement is at an all-time high. There's more than 68 million refugees, 68 million displaced people throughout the world. And of those, 25 million are refugees or have been granted refugee status through UNHCR. Worldwide, there are more than blank forcibly displaced people. I just gave you that answer on accident. So were you listening? That's the real question. Worldwide, how many displaced people are there? 68 million. I'm going to start clicking through these before I give you the answers. And of those, like I said, 25 million have been granted refugee status. So those 25 million could qualify for refugee resettlement. Kind of against this backdrop of the global refugee crisis that we're facing, the administration has made really significant cuts to refugee resettlement. Not just significant cuts, but cuts that have brought us to an all-time low. Last year, the cap on refugee admissions, so the cap maximum number of refugees that they were going to allow into the country was, does anybody know? 45,000 last year. But that is down from 110,000 in 2016.
Informed crowd.
That is an informed crowd, yeah.
And what was the total for 2018, which ended in September?
The total number resettled in 2018 was 22,400 and some odd.
And the reason for that drop from what it should have been was?
The reason for that drop, I think there's a couple different reasons. One of the primary ones is that they've implemented a new process in the vetting procedure that has really slowed down arrivals, especially from the 11 countries that were affected by the Muslim ban. And so the pipeline for refugees is just moving much, much slower. Despite the ceiling, the U.S. only admitted about 22,400 or so refugees in fiscal year 2018. And this year, the refugee admissions cap was set at a mere 30,000, which is the lowest in U.S. history.
How many of those in Illinois came came in 2018, how many of those came to the state?
Illinois resettled about 700 refugees in 2018. That's compared to 3,002 the year before. So a really, really huge drop in the state of Illinois, which has traditionally been one of the top 10 kind of leaders for refugee resettlement in the U.S. Despite the low ceiling that we have right now of 30,000, there's still a chance that arrivals this year could outpace those from last year. And that's because given that the ceiling is still higher than the actual number that were admitted last year, there's still a possibility that we could admit more refugees this year. True or false? Do refugees continue to arrive every month right now? True, yes. We're still seeing arrivals, and I think that's one really important message that we need to convey, is that arrivals do continue to come. And by working to meet this new ceiling, like I said, the U.S. could welcome more refugees this year than last. Since 2017, RefugeeOne has welcomed more than 1,700 refugees, and of those, nearly half were children. As you know, we help refugees from the moment their plane lands at O'Hare. We help them learn English and find jobs, get settled into their homes. We provide refugee youth with services and programming to help them catch up to their peers. And we also have a mental health program to help refugees overcome mental and physical health problems that might impede them from becoming self-reliant. This is kind of a reminder. Let's see if you were paying attention. How many languages do we speak here?
35.
35 different languages among the staff at RefugeeOne. And really that's a level of cultural and linguistic expertise that has been honed over the last 35 years. And that's the kind of infrastructure that we're trying to make sure stays in place so that we can continue doing this work. RefugeeOne is today serving clients longer and in more creative ways. So I want to talk about that for just a minute. Most of you are aware that last year we piloted a vocational sewing program. That's one way that we're hoping to serve refugees in more creative ways. That program has been geared towards primarily refugee women, although some men have participated in it, and has really been not just an opportunity for them to develop employable job skills, but also to mitigate some of the social isolation that refugees often experience upon arrival. We're also exploring ways to have new teen programming. So our youth program, our after-school program has a lot of services geared towards younger refugees. We're looking for we're developing special programming for older refugees. I think Melineh might talk about that a little more. We're also expanding our offerings when it comes to computer literacy skills and also English language training. Another thing that RefugeeOne is really prioritizing right now is advocacy. Like Sarah said, that's half of my job is working to make sure that we're advocating for policies that make for a more welcoming Illinois and United States. We're meeting with elected officials. We've been doing this for about a year and a half now, and we've had over a dozen meetings with elected officials throughout the state. And we've seen some success come from those meetings. For example, we had one Republican representative that we were meeting with who ended up becoming the first Republican in the country to join the Congressional Refugee Caucus. We're mobilizing communities and congregations through a new program that we've developed to create partnerships with congregations and get them engaged in advocacy. And we're working to hold the administration accountable to meeting that new ceiling. With the help of people like you and more than 1,400 volunteers, refugees really have the opportunity to succeed in Chicago. Here's another reminder, or we'll see how we're listening. Blank % of refugees are fully self-reliant within their first 12 months of arrival.
95%.
95%, that's great. We remember how many businesses we partner with. 150. Finally, refugees contribute to their new communities and to the economy in a number of different ways. They revitalize communities by offsetting population decline, and they boost economic growth nationwide by opening businesses, paying taxes, and buying homes. And refugees also play an active role in civic engagement. They maintain a strong devotion to education, and they become U.S. citizens. So as you'll hear from Melineh, and as you'll see on this cheat sheet that I pass out, we continue to welcome refugees every month. And we're helping those that have arrived in recent years by helping them advance their English, computer skills, and upgrade their jobs. We've added creative new programming, we're investing in advocacy, and when people say that their money might be needed abroad or for homeless vets, I think that we can have an answer that is yes, both. RefugeeOne has a need to. So with that, I'll turn it over to Melineh. Go back to the slides real quick.
Hello everyone, how's everyone doing? So sorry I couldn't be here at the beginning of the presentation. I wanted to hear some of what everyone decided to take as one of 3 items with them when they were fleeing. So we are going to talk about global refugee issues and we're going to bring it home and see how all of this has affected us. As you know, for the last few years, we are really facing the worst global refugee crisis since World War II. Currently, there are over 65 million individuals who have forcibly left home. That means because of war or whatever else it has happened, they can no longer stay where they are. Some of them are within their own country, some of them are out. Of that number, 25 million has been recognized by UNHCR, United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees, as refugees. They have already received the refugee status from UNHCR, which means they have their protection, and at some point a solution needs to be found for them. One of 3 solutions is resettlement. Last year, every day 44,400 additional people are displaced. And last year, a little over 100,000 worldwide was resettled. This shows you the admissions of refugees in the United States since 1980. Of course, at the beginning of the 80s is when we were resettling, Cambodians and Vietnamese, so that's when we were at the highest point. And then since then, it has been dropping. Last year, the cap for resettlement was 45,000, and we only resettled 22,491 refugees. This year, the cap has been set to 30,000, but through advocacy, we're going to make sure that every one of those 30,000 numbers is filled, so actually it would be an improvement over where we were. So we are hopeful that we can make it happen. RefugeeOne arrivals, you can see the numbers here in FY17, which was our record year, 714 refugees, and quite a different story the years that have followed. For this current year, we're hoping to resettle 210 refugees. And look at the number of adults and children. That's the 210 for this current year. Now, how are we responding for all this? Of course, as an organization, we have to be flexible. We have to respond to needs. We have to do it quickly. We have to do it in a way that speaks to our mission. We cannot be everything to everyone. So that's a lot for an organization to react to. And we're reacting to things that we have no control over. Why is this room so hot? Yeah. You can turn the air on if you want. Just turn it to AC. So one of the things we decided to do is, for those of you who know, asylees and refugees are admitted to United States or obtain their status based on the same exact thing, fear of persecution. They cannot go home, they have been persecuted. The difference is that refugees are not on US soil, they are outside. Asylees are here. They have come to United States either as a visitor or as a student. Their country conditions have changed. They can no longer go home, or they have presented themselves at a border point and they have declared a request for asylum, and their claim has heard, and United States officials have decided that yes, they have well-founded fear of persecution. So the basis of the law, exactly the same. asylees are given status on US soil, refugees are given status elsewhere. So we decided, okay, well, there are large, and one of the arguments this administration has set forward as a reason for lowering the number of refugees is because there are 600,000 asylum seekers right now in the pipelines. So they have said, you know, we have these people here, 600,000. So we need to put more resources in hearing their cases and seeing whether or not there are bona fide cases that we need to, you know, process. So that's going to, of course, increase the number of people here. So we said, well, if that's the reasoning, then we're going to seek out, you know, these asylees and offer our services to them. The second approach we took is, until now, our services have been very front-loaded to people who have been here about a year from arrival. So now we have extended those services, and we're going to serve people up to 5 years. So if someone was placed in a job, they can come back and get a job upgrade. If someone is working and their shift is in a way that they can still access our English classes, they can do that. For the kids, you know, we can serve them longer. So as you can see, these are some of the things. We are going to start some computer classes coming January. That's going to be just computer literacy because, as you know, more and more people need to have computer skills. Even for entry-level jobs, they have to have some computer literacy. So we are going to do that. And the sewing studio, Jim's talked a little bit about it. The goal there is to help especially women who come from backgrounds that have not allowed them to be in the workforce, you know, but the family economics are not too good, so they need to be earning money. So this will be a gentle way for them to gain a skill and start working part-time. Either at home, every graduate from the sewing studio gets a brand new machine, sewing machine to take home. So, so they can get, you know, some work, and we help them. About 50% of our graduates are already earning income. We're hoping to have to serve about 65 to 70 people a year, and we have just hired a very talented sewing studio manager. So we're hoping that, you know, she will be able to get some work for our graduates as well. And the teen programming. More and more gang recruitment is becoming an issue for our teenagers, and of course, you know, we work with them, but we work with the parents as well to make them aware of, you know, what their kids are facing out there. We have just started a program. We have recruited 15 teenagers. This is a pilot program. We'll see how it goes, and then hopefully we can launch a full program by July of next year with some funding. Right now we are doing it with existing staff and existing resources. And advocacy, as Jim mentioned, that's going to be very important for us. And it doesn't really depend, you know, whether there are more Republicans or more Democrats or whatever in Illinois as elected officials. We have to be in front of them. We have to meet with them. We have to give them the stories they need. We have to give them the facts and the data they need so that they can represent us in DC. So no matter who our elected officials are, it's still very important for us to make sure the refugee issue remains on top for them and they have what they need to talk. For those of you who know RefugeeOne, you know we are a very lean organization.